say again which application you're with?
Yes, of course. My name is Anthony Serafini. I'm with Northridge General Contractors. We're the contractor who's possibly performing the work that's been in question in this hearing for 11 Lakeview Drive.
Oh, 11 Lakeview. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're ready, everybody. So I can just make some opening remarks. So I'll call the meeting to order. I'll introduce the committee members and staff. So this is a hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Grimsby. On the committee itself, we have myself, Chair Kevin Antonitis. We have member Adam Mottershead. You can just wave. Danielle Beck, Dylan Bailey, Herb Nobes. Oh, Herb's still on video off. We've got to get him set up yet, but I believe he can hear. And then we've got staff planner Walter Basic and Nancy Simon, the clerk. So if I could just make a few comments when we start. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are live streamed by the Town of Grimsby. Individuals and media may be audibly and or visually recorded during this meeting. As a reminder, all electronic devices are to be in silent mode during the committee meeting. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please address your comments and questions through the chair. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. So what we'll do is briefly outline the process. We'll call the application and we'll bring you out of the waiting room. And then Nancy will read the application and kind of a synopsis of the correspondence that we've received first. We'll go through a little PowerPoint on the screen showing the application. And then we'll have the applicant or their representative elaborate on the application or give reasons why they're requesting the variance. And then we'll open it up first to members of the committee, so the 5. And the committee may ask staff, the planner, some clarifying questions and so on. And then we'll open it up to members of the public that have registered for this tonight. So is that clear, everybody? It's fairly straightforward. It's pretty relaxed. It's not a very formal hearing per se. We'll give everybody an opportunity to comment and question the application if they so wish. So does anyone have a pecuniary interest in the applications before us this evening? No, and I have none either. We'll start with the minutes of the previous meeting, and while we're doing that, maybe we'll move everybody into the waiting room. And then the first application, which you can probably stay here, is 82 Park Road South. Miles Weeks is a representative, so we'll keep you in, and everybody else will just set you temporarily into the waiting room if you don't mind. So the minutes being held, that was held on December 15th, we have a motion to approve. They were amended slightly after the circulation. I have a mover and a seconder. Danielle and Adam. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, if any. It's a lot easier to just do the physical hand instead of trying to find that little icon hand. So that works great. So approved. Okay, so the first application, and then we moved the agenda around slightly, as you knew. 82 Park Road South, Miles Weeks. So Nancy, if you want to read the application and a synopsis of the correspondence first.
Yes. So this is a revised application for 82 Park Road South. The application is for a 5.5 meter wide servicing easement over 82 Park Road South in favor of 80 Park Road South. With respect to comments, Grimsby Power had no comments and the region had no comments as long as there is no interference with regional infrastructure. Jessica, could you please bring up the slide? So this shows where the easement is on the property, which is right here. I understand that Mr. Miles Weeks, on behalf of AJ Clark, is here with us this evening, and he can give us some more information about the application. Mr. Weeks.
Thanks, Nancy. Yeah, so this is, to briefly summarize, it's really a technical amendment to an approval that was granted by this committee back in, I believe, August of 2020. We had previously obtained an approval for a 3-meter wide easement on the subject land. When the easement, to be clear, is for servicing to the adjacent property. When the servicing was installed, it was located just slightly outside of the approved easement. So we have effectively widened that easement to be 5.5 meters, whereas it was previously 3 meters, just to ensure that, you know, in the future there's no confusion as to who has legal access for maintenance purposes to these services. It doesn't affect you know, any physical structures on the land. It's just, as far as I'm aware, it's just a strip of grass along the edge of the property.
All right, thank you for that. Are there any questions? You have to mute. Nancy, you have to mute. Any questions? Sorry, a little technical. No? Just for the record, this is probably the shortest planning report that Walter's ever written, which is nice to see, nice and concise. Oh, he's not even, oh, his video's off, so I can't see his reaction. All right, then, there are no questions. If we could have a mover and a seconder on this application. Dylan, seconder. Adam. Any further discussion? That's better, bigger screen. Any further discussion on this application? If none, then do all those in favor say aye. Opposed, if any, was carried. That was it, fairly straightforward. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Night. We'll wait for a minute while we get the next application or applicants or their representative in. All right, welcome back, stranger. John?
Thank you very much. Am I on the agenda at this point?
Yes, you are. So we're just going to have Nancy read the application and the synopsis of the correspondence, and then we'll allow you to speak, or if you'd like to clarify or explain the reason why John Wolf couldn't do the job that you have to do for him, and you're doing cleanup here. Nancy?
So this application is on behalf of 1900042 Ontario Limited. It's with respect to 251 Murray and 4 Lincoln Avenue. So the variances that are requested for 251 Murray, it's a lot area of 4,061 square meters is requested, whereas 4,200 square meters is required. For number 4 Lincoln Avenue, a lot area of 950.8 square meters, whereas 4,200 square meters is required. And for number 4 Lincoln Avenue, interior side yard on the west side of 1.2 meters is requested, whereas 4.5 meters is the requirement. And on the slides here, so basically, Jessica, can you move to the next slide, please? And so I think you want to show the full screen, Jessica, if you can show the full screen. So this demonstrates 251 Murray for lot area and picture of the existing house. And the next screen, Jessica. This is 4 Lincoln Avenue. So this little piece here was added to number 4 Lincoln Avenue to give them a side yard of 1.2 meters. And I believe Mr. Shonwell is here to discuss the applications.
Yes, thank you. John?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is nice to see everyone on the Committee of Adjustment. It's been a period of time, and as well, nice to see staff, Nancy and Walter. But essentially, I was asked by a friend to assist him in cleaning up these files, and I asked him why, because I say he had done all the heavy lifting already, being the consent applications, and I would have thought that it would have been done at the same time. But anyways, we are here this evening requesting the variances on 251 Lincoln Avenue and as well 251 Murray Street and number 4 Lincoln Avenue. And obviously, as a result of the consent, there is a part 3. The parcel identified as part 3 is being added to number 4 Lincoln Avenue, which will bring its lot frontage into conformity. So there's no variance required for that. But essentially, the applications are relatively straightforward, and you as the committee members have dealt with them previously with the consent applications B04 and B05/20, which was done late last year. So I guess if there's any questions, I could answer any questions for you. Like I say, they are relatively straightforward. Due to unfortunate circumstances, the 2 parcels merged, and then they went and had them severed to separate them again. And as a result of that, this is what has caused the need for variances. And as well, the landowners were able to, since they're in similar ownerships or family ownerships, they're able to sever off the part 3 and add it to 4 Lincoln Avenue, which will then allow it with a side yard that is more in compliance with than what was there before. So if there's any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Any questions from the committee members first? No, it's pretty straightforward. And the variances, the requirements are actually not residential requirements, I assume. That's why it looks like a large variance on the face of it, the numbers they're showing. But those are obviously based on industrial standards or whatever the actual zoning is, I forget.
The properties, if I may add to that, is that the properties have remained in the same configuration with the same uses. They are properties that surrounded the Niagara relocatable building site, which were purchased by the Mcneil family and Mcneil family holdings and numbered companies, which were all associated with the NRB, which were essentially land acquisition, and that has they've remained in the family, and this is where they're trying to get this cleaned up at this point, and the merging was done inadvertently.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Anyone have any further questions? No? If not, then there's no delegations on this file, then do I have a motion and a seconder? Yes. Oop. Anybody? Sorry, we can't move it, John. Oh, there we go. Danielle? And Dylan? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, if any? There's Herb. Welcome, Herb. It was approved. Thanks for attending, John, and nice to see you again.
Well, did we do the other application,
sorry.
number 6?
Sorry, that's one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Herb. Nice to see you.
Bye-bye.
So that was 251 Murray and number 4 Lincoln, and so we've got another one, 6 Lincoln. Nancy, you've just briefly outlined.
This is application A04/21 for Mcneil Family Holdings. So correspondence received, there was none. There were no comments. And again, Mr. Shunwell is here to discuss this one. This application is for a reduction in the lot frontage from 30 meters to 13.93 meters, and for the interior side yard requirement of 4.5 meters to 1.2 meters.
All right, John, did you have any further clarification?
Sorry, reduction to 3 meters.
Oh.
3 meters, yes. So with a lot frontage of 13.93 as a result of removing the 1.3 meter sliver that was being added to number 4 Lincoln Avenue to allow it for a larger side yard. Again, this application is relatively straightforward, and like I say, it's the lot frontage and the lot area is the variances requested, and the landowner is fully willing, and we agree with the planning correspondence. And if there's any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Any questions from the committee members at this time? No? All right, and there's no delegations then. Could I have a mover and a seconder on this application as well? Herb, seconder? Anybody, seconder? Seconder. What happened to Danielle? I don't see her on the screen. Danielle? She out?
I'm here. Sorry, Mr.
Oh,
Chair.
there
My
she is.
hand is up. I apologize.
Ah, there we go.
I was trying
knew
to
it was-
wave thinking it was motion activated, but it's not. So I apologize.
No.
But no, I am
I
seconding.
think you
Thank
slid down the screen because I only saw the presentation. So great, we got a second. Any further discussion on this application? All those in favor say aye. And opposed, if any, was carried. All right, this time I can say thanks, John. Nice to see you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Enjoy your evening, and to the rest of the committee, it's nice seeing you. And I hopefully won't be doing this very often, but it was nice seeing you.
Doing
night.
cleanup for Mr. Wolf. All right, the next application on the agenda is 11 Lakeview, Kathleen Barrett. Nancy, is Kathleen in, or there?
Yes.
There she is. Hi, Kathleen. We're just gonna have Nancy read the application for a second here and the correspondence.
So this is application 802/21 on behalf of Kathleen Barrett, 11 Lakeview. The application is for the reconstruction of an existing legal non-conforming garage. The variance is for the reduction in the side yard requirement to 0.80 meters, whereas 1.8 meters is required. So this is a picture on the screen of the existing structure with the garage right here. Next slide. And this screen shows the side yard reduction. Is there another screen there? Okay, and this is the picture of the elevation. So the front elevation, the right side elevation, and the rear elevation. With respect to comments, there were no comments from the region. The Public Works Department commented that they had some concerns about drainage and the maintenance of the garage, given that the side yard requirement is reduced. And I believe Kathleen Barrett is here in the audience to speak to the application.
Yes, and I believe I saw her potential builder was here as well. So if we can just back, I don't see her, but
I'm here.
there she is. I hear her. Kathleen, did you want to elaborate a little bit on the application, or?
So I moved here about 1.5 years ago, and I didn't realize the shape that the garage was in really when I moved here. So there's a lot of openings in the garage that animals can get into, and there were animals living in the garage when I moved in. So I started looking at trying to close it off a little bit more, and the person who renovated this house put the furnace and the electrical on that side. It's actually just off the garage, all my furnace and my electrical. So I started looking at trying to close it in a little bit more or trying to do something with it. And in that process, I had a few contractors here, and then I had an engineer, and actually there is a roof on top of the roof of that garage. So the engineer advised that if any heavy snowfall happened, that the roof could actually collapse. So then started the whole process of not putting more money into it to try to fix what's already there, but to try to take it down and then just rebuild on the same foundation. So I'm rebuilding on the same foundation, but rebuilding it because it's not in very good shape.
Okay, so the comments raised in, I think from Public Works about drainage, I'm assuming that already exists and that you're rebuilding on the same footprint. So the narrow side yard already exists.
Yeah. So there is a drain in the foundation. So Anthony's on this call, I think, but the idea is not to change the foundation. It's just to take the walls down and take the two roofs down, because there's one on top of the other. And the lower roof, all the shingles need to be replaced too. So it's not in good shape, right? So to take it down and to start over and make it more uniform to the house. So you can see by the picture, it has the old siding old window, old door, like everything. It doesn't really match or fit the house the way it is either, the way it looks. So that's the idea.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee members for Kathleen or Anthony? Herb?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I believe this application was for a story and a half. If you could just clarify that for me, is this a?
That is correct.
Okay, so this doesn't look like a story and a half. It looks like a full 2-story to me, according to this. And it's not a garage anymore because there's no garage door to this. So this isn't an addition to the garage. This is an addition to the house. And with a two-story, is the setback not greater?
So what I can speak to is
Thanks, Herb.
what I can speak to is the garage itself is attached to the house, and just off the house is my furnace and all my electrical. Okay, so then there's not even a wall, and then there's the garage. So it doesn't function really well as a garage because it's really got part of my house in it. And right now, like there's absolutely no insulation, nothing over there. And my heating bills are through the roof I put the heat down so low because there's really no dividing properly because they put the furnace and the electrical over there. So, and because it's a roof on top of a roof, when you go in the garage, it does look fairly high. It does have like a balcony kind of area now, except that you can't see the second roof. So that was the idea, was to open it up so that there could be storage in that upper area, because the foundation of it is really not that big, and I'm not increasing the foundation.
So I guess the question is this an addition to your house, not a garage? That was his question.
It's function as a garage because it's not really big enough. So when I started looking at closing in the furnace and the electrical that's over there, I started looking at just making it a bottom rec room and then upstairs kind of storage, because it doesn't really function as a garage.
If I could interject here, sorry, I don't want to cut you off, Kathleen. Herb, to address your question, it is a 1.5 story that's being proposed. The actual height in terms of from grade, I don't believe is actually changing any, because like Kathleen said, the actual garage, although it is a 1-story garage, does have a significant height to the roof line. The reason it's a 1.5 story and not a 2-story is because the second floor is actually open to the first floor. So it's a loft. So under the building codes, it is classified as 1.5 stories. The other thing I'd like to address is the Public Works comment, which was about drainage. As Kathleen stated, and as the plan states, we are proposing to put the addition on the existing foundation and footing, provided that we are able to inspect them and determine that they are adequate for the new building. But obviously the footprint is not changing. So any existing drainage, which would have been previously approved when this structure did fall under the requirements for side lot, would still be in place.
Right. And you have had no problems with drainage to date, I assume, or as far as I mean, you've only lived there a year, but I mean, you're not experiencing drainage problems now, and you haven't heard any complaints from your neighbor at this point for drainage on that side yard?
No.
Any questions? Oh, other questions? Yes, Danielle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the, I guess the applicant and the agent, looking at what the pictures are now from Street View and from when I went out and visited the site to the elevations that have been provided, it does appear that the height is actually significantly increasing, because the peak of the, I'm going to call it an addition because it's not in a garage anymore. Understanding that it never functioned as one, but it's not a garage anymore. You're putting an addition onto the house, but the peak of that addition is to the exact same height as the existing house. Whereas right now it falls about halfway through that second level. So the massing of it is going to, from a height perspective, it is going to change. And I do have concerns with respects to the public work comments. As the applicant, as the owner has said, that there was significant damage to that. That's why it needs to be replaced. I'm wondering if that's because of the poor drainage. Is that damage done because of the water that has been sitting around there? I also would like to know I would have liked to have seen floor plans to know what this area was being used for, if it's no longer a garage. And then I guess my question to staff is, are there any concerns with just adequate parking being provided now that this is not being used as a garage? Does Grimsby require 2 parking spaces? And assuming based on the plans, they can be accommodated in the driveway appropriately?
So do you want to address that first, Walter, or answer the question?
Sure. Absolutely. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, we did have a measurement of the driveway, the length and the width from the front lot line to the proposed structure and the width of the garage, and there's sufficient room to accommodate 4 vehicles, four zoning parking spaces.
Thank you. And did you have another related question? Oh, about damage. The question was raised about whether or not you thought the holes, you had said there were holes in the former garage, I guess, were caused by drainage.
I believe, if I could address that the damage Kathleen is talking about was all above grade. It actually had nothing to do with damage. We did have a structural engineer come in. He was certified. He did look at it. He determined that the roof structure is possibly compromised and did provide some solutions. However, from what we can see above grade, without doing any excavation, he did determine that the foundation should be adequate for the proposed addition. In terms of the other comment, which I believe was brought up, was the floor plan. The floor plan is included on the drawings that were submitted to the building department. So I'm not sure if you've had a chance to review those. If you don't, please contact me directly and I'd be happy to provide you with a copy. I'm sure Kathleen can as well. And like I said, the height we are estimating, we have no confirmation on final height. Obviously that'll be determined on site, and there's a number of factors that go into that, including the main floor system, whether we do sleepers or slab on grade, whether the existing foundation is determined to be adequate for new construction, and so forth.
Thank you for that clarifications. Any further questions to the applicant, Herb?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Even though you're saying that it's 1.5 stories because it's a loft in there, it is a height of a 2-story structure, and it looks like in your drawings it is a vinyl siding on the exterior of the house. The problem is with setback for a 2-story building structure, I think is greater than what is proposed for a 1-story. Walter may be able to elaborate on that.
Walter, did you want to address that? The reduction is from 1.8 to 0.8, right? And that's to recognize an existing wall. But what would it be for a 2-story?
The zoning currently, the current bylaw doesn't differentiate between different heights of buildings. The different zoning categories have different setback requirements. The narrower, the zoning categories that permit narrower lots have minimum side yards of 1.2 meters for 1- and 2-story buildings. So the old zoning bylaw 7174 as amended, did vary the height based on the height of the building, or the setback requirement based on the height of the building. The current bylaw doesn't do that.
And would it have been greater than 1.8? Because this one is asking for a 1.8 variance from 1.8 down to 0.8. So had it been 2 under the old bylaw, would it have been 2 or 2.
Right. Under the old bylaw, the requirement would have been 1.8 meters.
Okay. Either way.
Right.
I guess the other question is how much drainage is actually going through there? Like it's a driveway. It runs east, I would suspect, to the open ditch, and any other drainage from the backyard. I don't know, is it going west or is it running along this side yard? I mean, I can't see there being that much more drainage in this area. Anything coming off the roof, I'm assuming would be collected by eaves troughs and forced either out to the road, to the open ditch.
Yeah, there's only drainage out the back and out the, there's been no water issue in the garage. I do have stuff stored in there. It's just, there's no insulation. It's freezing cold. So there's that. It's the roof line that has the holes in it that animals can get into.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there any further questions then of the applicant or her representative at this time? Adam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, what is the access between the addition and the main building?
There's a door off my kitchen that goes into a side room that has my furnace and my electrical. And then there's a very thin wall with no insulation and it's freezing cold. That's the garage. So there's kind of like an area of waste where the furnace and the electrical is, and it's not really enclosed properly in my mind properly. So then it's all open to the garage.
Could we maybe flip the front view of the house, the street view on the screen? I don't know, would Jessica be able to do that? Or Nancy? I think it was the first one, 2 slides back.
Yeah, so if you see
Thank
where
you.
the doorway is, if you see where the doorway is to that garage, that's where the furnace and the electrical is. So it's all in the garage. There's just a thin little flimsy wall between it and all the open garage, basically.
So, and based on what you're proposing, either yourself or, I forget, sorry.
Anthony.
Anthony, you wouldn't need a variance for height based on what you're proposing in this drawing?
I don't believe so, no. Like I said, I haven't been well versed in these particular bylaws. But
I mean, it's not any different than what's there now.
from what I'm hearing from your fellow counsel, it seems like the only issue, and what I believe I read when I did look at the hearing, is the side lot setback. And it seems that however your counsel wants to define this proposed structure, it is 1.5 story, but it doesn't seem like there's any difference between a 1 or 2 story setback. So
right,
should be no issue.
And my other question, I guess, for Kathleen, have you talked to your neighbor to the north about this application, or are they aware of it? They're not here tonight or didn't register as delegation, so I'm assuming they don't have any concerns, or?
Yeah, I spoke to them. I told them that I explained the issues that I was having with the garage, and I explained that I wanted to, rip it down and build it. But their side, what they would see is the only change to them should really be that it would be more uniform to the house, because it's just going to be the same, they would see that side wall, right?
Right. All right, thank you. Any further questions from the committee members? Herb?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Is there any connection of the second story loft into the main house?
No.
No.
Any other questions? Sorry, I can't see the full, let me just shift here. Oh, that's better. Sorry, any other questions? No? All right, there's no other delegations, no neighbors, then I will ask for a motion and or move it and a seconder on this application. Dylan, moved, seconder. Anyone? I'll move it to get on or second it to get on the floor. So any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, if any? Was defeated. So you have a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Is it 20 days from date of application?
Yes.
Yeah.
20 days from today.
Yeah. So unfortunately it was defeated. So you have an appeal period that Nancy can explain to you. All right. Thank you for coming.
Okay. Thanks.
The next application is,
Sorry, Mr. Chair, to interrupt just before. There was a resolution that we didn't do at the beginning of the agenda, and that's just to approve the agenda and the delegations for today prior to us jumping to the next application. I just want to make sure we get that in before.
yeah, and that's something new. We've never done that before, so I will ask for that. I saw that later. So I will ask for an approval of the agenda, which we're already halfway through. Mover and a seconder,
I'll move.
Danielle. Adam, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Was carried. So now we're official.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure just because we're coming up with the delegations. Thank you.
So we have the last application, number 112 Lakeside Drive. Anish Patel, and we're going to have Nancy read the application. Is everybody in? We'll allow everybody in first before we start.
This is application 80-21 on behalf of Anish Patel of 112 Lakeside Drive. The application is for two-story additions to permit a front yard setback of 6 meters, whereas 6.68 meters is required, and to permit side yard setbacks on both sides of 1.2 meters, whereas 1.8 is required. So we did have correspondence from the NPCA. They had no objections, but they will require a permit from the NPCA before construction begins. Also, there was comments from the region that the applicant must obtain a letter from MHSTCI acknowledging archaeological resource concerns have been met, the licensing requirements, and that the applicant obtain an archaeological assessment scoped to the limit of the lands under construction. There was also written concerns from a neighbor at 110 Lakeside Drive, concerns about the applicant being able to provide adequate access to his backyard in case his shoreline protection needs repair. And also the neighbor at 110 Lakeside is requesting that the 1.8 meter side yard setback on the side of 110 Lakeside Drive be left at 1.8 so that he can also have adequate access to his backyard in the event that he needs to perform shoreline protection. The neighbor at 114 Lakeside Drive expressed concerns about the property lines, and he believes the applicant may be infringing on his property. And I believe Mr. Patel is here with us, and also his contractor, Igor, is also in the, I'm sorry, I can't have Igor's last name, Igor.
Perfect.
All right, we start with the applicant, the owner.
Hello.
Sorry, again, I gotta scroll through my gallery here.
And sorry, just one correction while you guys are doing that. We are actually the design firm, not the contractor.
Okay, thank you for
So
that
we can
clarification.
field the zoning questions.
Yeah. Great. Did you wish to clarify at all? Or elaborate on that and respond to some of the comments or questions received?
Okay, I wish to assure everybody that the property line will be maintained. Like whatever the city says or whatever is to be maintained, we'll respect that and we'll go by that. Like the reason why the pavers were a little bit like a part of it were on my neighbor's side, maybe I believe because the bushes were leaning on our sides and to straighten them up, we kept some of it maybe. But if there's an issue, we can take that off.
I guess the question is, do you have a survey, a current survey on this property to ensure that you're not encroaching and these are actual accurate measurements that are proposed for the variance?
The only survey we have is from the city because we bought the house in like 2005, and that's all we have right now. But if you want, we can go and get the survey.
That could be it. Sometimes the committee makes that as a condition if they feel it's justified or warranted. So did you wish to elaborate any more or respond to some of the other comments that were raised in the correspondence or from the neighbors?
Right, like as I said, like what I'm building is like I'm not building like a 2 or 3 story structure, but the existing structure will blend in with the current neighborhood. I will make use of neutral colors and like the streetscape will be maintained in short.
Do you mind if I pitch in?
Yeah, go ahead, Igor.
So regarding the comments from the neighbors, would you mind repeating the concerns were maintaining setback?
Nancy, did you want to summarize those? Yeah, give us a second.
We're maintaining the proper setbacks for 110 Lakeside Drive. They'd like to see the 1.8 meters retained for shoreline protection purposes. And the neighbor at 114 Lakeside Drive had concerns about the property lines.
So to speak to neighbor 110, we are requesting the minor variance specifically to be in line with the existing house setback. So in terms of shoreline protection access, we wouldn't be decreasing it for the addition. It would just be in line with the existing structure. On the other side, absolutely, we are requesting a minor variance from the property lines, whatever those are. So I'm not sure that will be a dispute, given that we are doing side yard and rear yard additions. I imagine the building department will 100% request a site plan or a site survey. So I don't think that'll be an issue because we will have to build to the site survey, of course.
Question for you regarding shoreline protection.
Mm-hmm.
What's common practice now? Do they come in from the road or do they not come in from the water? Are you aware?
Sorry, that part I'm not aware.
Okay. Because I'm assuming, like you said, if they're already at 1.2 meters, I don't know how, based on the size of the armor stone they're bringing in, I thought most of it comes in from the water anyways. And I don't know what's down there. I haven't seen it.
Could be. And then the only...
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I would like to add that there are garages which is there on 110 Lakeside. So if like a truck or anything has to go, like it cannot go, right? So like, as you said, they might have to access it by water.
Yeah. And then last point for the neighbor at 114, the only reason we're requesting the minor variance is so that we can actually accommodate a legal garage. We'd have no problem going smaller, but those are the minimums set for a garage.
Could I have a second to speak? I'm speaking on behalf of my parents who are the residents at 114.
Yeah, we'll give you an opportunity. I just see Derek's iPhone. Everybody will be given a chance to speak. We're just going one by one down the list of delegates right now, starting with the applicant, and then the committee members will ask questions, and then we'll allow everybody else in order. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Patel, did you wish to add anything else before we open it up to the committee?
No, I'll first hear the queries they have and I'll try to answer what I can.
Okay, are there any questions from the committee members then? And or staff? Herb?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering, right now, it looks like you have parking for 2 cars within your own property on this piece of land. I'm looking at some pictures I took earlier today. And it looks like the proposed garage is a single car garage. Is that correct? That's going to be going in there. And why is it going to be a little extra wider than a single car that is required?
So
Patel or Igor?
yeah, from what I understand, we were going by the minimum dimensions. So when you take into account wall thickness, I believe we're right up against the minimum.
I couldn't hear that reply. You might have to speak a little louder into the mic. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me now? So from what I remember when we were doing the floor planning and the design work, the specific sizing is because of the minimums for the garage. When you take into account wall thickness and all that.
So one more thing I want to add was like I removed some part of my grass on my side, and that is why my driveway is a bit wider on my side. You can see if you have taken the pictures.
Does that answer your question, Herb? Does anybody else have a question? Any other committee members? Sorry, Herb, one more.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think to have this, for me to support this, I would need to have a clause in there indicating that anything that is constructed needs to be laid out by a professional land surveyor and then certified that it's in the proper location.
Yeah, that can be done.
It would be happy to oblige.
Layout of the foundation for the garage to be set out by a Ontario land surveyor, a certified surveyor.
Mm-hmm.
So typically the site survey would show existing and proposed.
No, what I'm saying is during construction, an Ontario land surveyor would lay out the foundation for any addition. To
Well,
make sure.
I think you mean make sure that the proposed or the foundation is built in accordance with what's approved here and not any greater than.
Correct.
That makes perfect sense.
We've just had instances where the foundation is poured and they found out after that it was beyond what one variance was approved, and then they came back for a second one, but it's already built. That's sort of avoiding that when it was controversial, especially. So I think that's what Herb was alluding to.
It's a great suggestion.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee members? No? Is there the delegations then? Maybe we'll start in order. Do you have an order for us, Nancy? If we can call them out. I see 1, 2, 3, I think. Just bear with us here for a second.
Yes. So for 112 Lakeside, we have first off Anthony and Mary DeMarco at 110 Lakeside Drive.
110 Lakeside, are they here? Anthony and
Mary DeMarco.
Anthony and Mary DeMarco. Would you like to speak to the application? If I could just remind people to keep it to a few minutes, 5 minutes at a time, and then not repeat what other delegations have said, just in the interest of time. Sometimes people get up one after another and say the same thing. So hopefully we can all keep the comments to being unique ones or specific to your particular situation, depending on what side you're on, I guess, of this property. So do we have them? I see one person off of mute, but
I don't think they're here.
they're not here? Okay, let's go down the list then. Who's next?
So the next is Daniel and Shelley Quantrell at 106 Lakeside.
106 Lakeside, are you here?
Hi there, this is Shelley.
Hi, Shelley. We can't see you, but we can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. So I'm at 106 Lakeside. And the only couple of concerns that I have. One is the backyard privacy issue. I'm just trying to understand how deep into the backyard the new addition is being built, including the decking, balconies, etc. What the expectation is of that.
Okay, Igor, did you wish to address that? It is shown on the plan, but maybe if we can pull it back up briefly, if Jessica could show it maybe on the screen, would be helpful. That would be the top view.
That's the
Is there, yeah, does that help a little bit?
right.
So,
Okay.
sorry, this resolution's a bit blurry. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm allowed to share my screen. I can,
Can Igor share his screen? Yes, you can, Igor.
I just need to be granted permission.
Oh,
So
yeah,
the
somebody
green
has to
button.
grant him. We're just, Jessica, did you catch that? Or
So
Walter?
Green button, allow multiple share screens, I think.
Yeah, just give us a second here.
Sure.
Jessica, are you able to do that for us? Can you see any permissions yet? Igor? There we go. No?
Oh, let's see. Not yet.
Wait,
Jessica, can you see it? Is Igor able to share his screen? No?
No worries. While we wait
Okay.
for that, so the proposed rear addition extends
sorry, I cannot. Yeah.
No trouble. The proposed rear addition extends 4 feet, 4.130 meters, my fault. And then the deck would extend another 3 meters. So altogether 7.13 meters.
Okay, so that's a considerable depth. And with the height of the new proposed addition, my sense is, I'm trying to visualize it. I'm not an architect, so I'm trying to visualize it. And my sense is that we would lose some privacy in our backyard. So when I walked towards the lakeside, the lakeshore area of my home, where I have a large willow tree and I will often hang out in a hammock there, I would be visible. And currently we have full privacy because all of the homes are about the same height and the same depth into our backyard. So that is my concern, is the loss of privacy in our backyard.
Did you wish to respond to that, Igor or Anish? Is there any variance before I do? There's no variance required for the rear yard setback or the height?
Correct.
Okay.
Both are staying within zoning bylaws. But in terms of the privacy for the deck, a privacy screen could be proposed. If that's a concern, but again, it's not part of.
I would like to add one thing. I already have a deck going out from my house, and we are on there. So what we are proposing, the addition will go only up to the deck. It is not beyond it. So as it is, we are on that deck, and it's going to be the height close to that height what we are proposing. So
How far off the ground is that deck proposed, the new deck?
no, the new deck is on the ground.
If you go to the first photos for the isometric views, next page, I guess.
Jessica? Sorry, bear with us for a second. Jessica's in the other room, so.
I believe we proposed a ground level deck. So the
Okay,
existing
now-
deck is a first story deck, and I believe that was with the permit and approvals and all that.
Yeah.
And are there any additional balconies proposed for the second or third floors? Or windows perhaps that face, the lakeside as well as towards 106 area?
Well, I'm assuming there'd be
Windows for
windows
sure.
out to the lake.
Yeah.
Right. But balconies, that's
No balconies, but window is there, yes.
right.
And the deck is on the ground, basically, is what I'm hearing.
It's on the first floor, let's say.
Or first floor, yeah.
Okay. All right. excuse me. One other thing is typically when a construction like this occurs, does the committee provide some type of timeline as to when the construction can last, for example? I know that's a strange question, but I'm only asking because I know Mr. Patel had put up some decking and balconies and things like at the Lakeside last summer, but it seemed to extend throughout the summer, the work. And I'm just asking from a noise standpoint as far as summer enjoyment. So I'm just curious, is that something that is considered or talked about at all?
I'm going to defer to staff on that if there's a time limit.
Yeah, so the thing is like like the permissions and everything takes a while. So I cannot do it like one by one another. So it took me a while to do it, but I will make sure that this is done with a lot of professionals hanging out and as quickly as possible.
So I'm going to defer to staff if I could just for a minute. Walter or Nancy, is there any way to put a window on the time?
Through the building permit process, Mr. Chair, there is a time limit at which time the chief building official, if he sees no progress with the construction, has the ability to pull the permit or to withdraw the permit. So that would be really the only time constraint. And the other time constraints are relative to when construction can start in the morning and when it has to cease in the evening. So it doesn't go into the night and doesn't start too early to disturb people's sleep patterns. So those are the only time restrictions that would be associated with any construction or building permit.
Okay, thank you. Did you have any further questions at all?
And I'll just reply so thank you very much for clearing that up. And to the chair, you had mentioned about the break wall. So I am familiar with break wall work and I'm not a professional, but I will say that typically it is done from the street. So just so you are aware of that. Lakeside break wall repair will only happen at the very bottom part of the shoreline where the rocks meet the actual soil or, that type of layer of the lake. And it obviously has to be done with the approvals from the region and the conservancy body, etc. So
yeah, but
that's just my experience, and I'm just sharing that because I mean that was a question that came up.
Okay, thank you. Dylan had his hand up. Dylan, did you wish to ask a question or comment? No? Okay. Do we have another delegation then?
So there's Derek Wright and Niall Wright from 114 Lakeside Drive.
Derek from 114 Lakeside. Did you wish to add some comments or questions or clarification?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just over at my parents visiting, and we've gone over a few of their concerns, and they would like me just to address them, if that's okay. They were living here prior to the year 2000, and they think it was around 2000 when the shoreline protection work was done in the backyards of a number of the houses involved. And my father did want to point out that he hadn't considered it, but the heavy equipment that was used to bring in the heavy concrete stones did use access between ours or there and Mr. Patel's house. So I'm not sure how that affects if there is any work that needs to be done in the future. But that is just a consideration he wanted me to raise. The first concern that they have is the property line with respect to the bottom of Mr. Patel's driveway closest to the road. About 5 years ago, he put in some stones and a piece of wood holding those stones, and they believe that that's encroaching on their property, not by a great amount, but significantly enough that they would like to make sure that that's addressed, that the property line is respected. I'm not sure if you want me to address all three concerns or just pause now and let anybody say something if they would like.
No, continue. That's fine. You can put them all and then we'll open it up for a response. Thank you.
Thank you. Their second concern is, again, as the other neighbor alluded to, the deck privacy issue in the backyard, with the new structure being built, and presumably I'm not privy to the plans, but I assume there's going to be some windows facing between the houses, and then with the distance being encroached upon as closer to the house, there is a basement bedroom window in 114 that is used by visiting family members. So their concern would be about privacy for both the back deck as well as between the properties, that they were wondering if there was some way a fence could be installed, given that the properties are moving closer. There is that bedroom to respect privacy. And I believe that was the final issue. Sorry, I said there was 3. I think it was only the 2. They were just kind of dual with the fence and the windows. Sorry, my dad's just coming in.
And the deck as well, windows overlooking the deck.
Oh, sorry. And if there's any windows on the proposed structure that will be looking over the onto their deck, again, the privacy issue in that regard. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for those comments. I'll have either Igor or Anish respond to those comments or questions. I guess backing up
Yes, I will.
the driveway encroachment issue or some of those structures. Did you want to respond
Yeah,
to
okay. So the last question was like the visiting, like he has a window in the basement that is already covered by the bushes which are planted on his side. So I don't know why there is an issue. Like it's already covered. So, and they cannot see like our driveway from that window. And if they want like a wall to be built up, I'm not sure like how I can address that. But if they want it, like we'll go ahead with it.
Igor, did you want to expand at all on that? Sorry, you're on mute.
Yes, I was just up speaking to my parents. Yes, while...
Sorry, we lost. Derek's going to add. Sorry, Derek.
I'm sorry. Yeah, for several months of the year, or maybe half the year, the bushes are thick enough that the foliage doesn't allow somebody to see through, but that's not the case in the winter months.
Okay, thank you. Igor, yeah.
Okay, just quickly, I believe in our proposed plans, we are limiting the amount of windows specifically to, for this side of the home, specifically to a stairwell and to the garage itself. And again, if it's a big problem, it can be stipulated that these are frosted windows or something.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Derek first, and then is there any other delegations tonight? Is it 3?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Derek. Anybody else? Any other questions or follow-up comments? Dylan? And then Herb?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, just clarification for myself from what was previously said, and perhaps I'm just not reading or looking at the plans correctly. From where the house is now existing, we're talking about a deck going out, and is the structure expanding by 7 meters from the back? Like that to me is significant, but I just from what I can see, I'm not sure if I'm understanding it. If I'm understanding it correctly.
I think Igor can speak to that. It doesn't look like, it looks like 4 meters plus potentially a 3-meter deck. Am I reading that correctly?
Perfectly.
So it's 4 meters, so 12 feet off the back, but the variance isn't for the back necessarily, the back distance. We're going to get an overlay here. That helps.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the actual structure itself, the home, is going to get an additional 12 feet, 4 meters, and then a deck will go there. So if you go to the next page, I think there's a nice visual that should kind of show scale a little bit better. But in terms of 9 feet for a deck, I don't think that's unreasonable.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just trying to sort of understand some of the comments regarding privacy, et cetera. So if we could see the next picture, if that's more clear, that would be great. But otherwise, I'll take your word for it and this plan.
So, Igor, my question, I guess, is on the garage side.
Yes.
It looks like a long, narrow, it looks like two single cars like stacked. So that wall will be, I'm assuming, a blank wall or a window into a garage, so a frost window. There's not living space in there in the lower level?
No, so actually it'll be just a single garage.
Okay.
And then a bed, so single garage, a winding staircase, and then a bedroom looking onto the lake. But I can confirm that that bedroom will not have a window on the side yard.
Right, so facing west. Okay. Does that help, Dylan? Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Herb, you had one next.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just to get some clarification. The garage itself is only going to be capable for storing one vehicle. And that back portion of the so-called garage, I see a note that says on the ground floor, garage staircase for second floor laundry room and one bedroom on the second floor.
Yes,
Two bedrooms, 3 closets.
That's what Igor just stated. So it'll be a garage,
Yeah,
staircase, and a bedroom. Right, Igor?
There's going to be a separation between the garage and this staircase and bedroom. A wall across someplace in this.
Or you're just questioning if they're going to be parking in their bedroom? Is that what you're asking?
Pardon me?
Are you asking if they're going to be parking in their bedroom?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
If I could send photos or something.
Can we see the?
One sec. Can
we see the previous one, Jessica? Ah, there we go.
I don't know if this is clear at all. So the plan is a single car garage.
Does that help, Herb?
Well, that's my question then. The application is for a setback for a garage on the west side, and which it's a garage and an addition to the house. You've got both things happening here. It's not just a garage.
Sorry, the variance request is to go down from 1.8 meters side setback to 1.2.
Yes, and
right.
For a house, and you have it's states on there that it's a garage on the plans that I have, and it's a garage and an addition to the house.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted clarification on that.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica, can you go to the previous one from this? Jessica, you can hear us?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I think we need to go to the presentation, and the presentation has the renderings of the building showing the additions in blue.
Okay, I'll show that one.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where is it? I always cannot find it.
There we go. Does that help, Herb? So the garage in the lower level on the left and a bedroom above, I'm assuming. Is that correct, Igor and Anish?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Looks like it's a 2-story addition on the west side of the property, and then a second story added to the existing house on the east side of the property. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Correct.
Correct. And so from the back view, so the bottom right-hand diagram is looking from the lake at the back of the house.
Yes.
And so you can see the deck on the lower level on the addition on the left. And on the right is the back of the garage, which is actually a bedroom, I'm assuming, a top and bottom.
Well, the deck is actually on the second floor.
That's the existing deck, sir. We already have that in place.
The deck is on the second floor between the two additions.
Yeah, that's the existing deck. We already have that in place.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like it's not on the ground floor.
Right, but that's not the deck that's part of the shown on the sketch. The sketch on the left shows the deck, or the rendering on the left shows the new deck coming out of the back of the first floor, and that's what's shown on the top plan on the application. The questions were regarding the deck, what the height of the deck is. The new deck is the one on the left. Yes, he's pointing to it now. So that's the new deck.
Okay. Yes,
right.
The one that's between the two additions is on.
Exactly.
Yes.
The one between the two additions that exists already will kind of be, it'll be tucked in between the two additions on the second floor. Yes. Okay, good. That helps clarify. Any other questions? Danielle?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Igor, if you can possibly answer this. I think one of the questions was about privacy from the neighbor at 114. And I believe you answered that there were no windows on the second story facing that on that west elevation. Are there any windows on that first story on the west side? So the new addition, that bedroom that's located in behind the garage.
Right. Let me bring it up. So
that green room, yeah, perfect. Okay.
Okay, so essentially the windows are restricted to the staircase.
Okay.
And to the garage itself.
Okay.
The,
So
the
there's
bedroom that we're discussing.
Yes.
Will only
has it out
have.
the back.
That's correct. Specifically
perfect.
for the privacy for everyone involved, I guess.
That's fantastic. Thank you for clarifying. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? Herb, you got another one?
Yes, you indicated in that question by Danielle that the second story bedroom in the rear will not have any windows onto this is on the west side of the property. What about the bedroom in the front of the house? That room that's in the front of the house?
That one will also not have windows facing the neighbor.
Okay. Okay.
All right, thank you for that clarification. And any further questions? So the application request, now there's no, sorry. Oh, there is no conditions put on this yet, but the, is there? Maybe I'm reading the wrong one. Bear with me. Found it. We have the right one.
Mr. Chair, was there another delegation that didn't get a chance to speak yet?
Oh, they weren't here. They're not here. We asked them, we called their name first, unless they've since arrived. Is there somebody else here to speak to the application? Sorry, you're on mute, Walter.
I thought Neil Rice was a delegation for this. Or
We did call.
She's with Derek.
Oh, she's with Derek. Sorry.
Yeah, she's 114.
She's at 114. She was with Derek.
Who, Neil Rice?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But Adam had his hand up. So before we talk about the motion and so on, Adam, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm hearing a lot of valid concerns from neighbors with privacy and the access for the waterfront remediation or fixing the break wall. But I don't know if the neighbors are able to see the elevations because they appear to be audio only. So I'm not sure if they're calling in or they can actually see the proceedings. But I'm just wondering how they feel about the character of the home in the neighborhood. It's because it's going from a split level, which is the predominant form in the neighborhood, to two-story with a garage.
So a lot of houses in the neighborhood have been developed right now. Like you see 124 Lakeside, it is a very huge house. And in comparison to that, we are just minute. So I don't think, like a lot of houses, if you see in the neighborhood, they are being developed, and I don't think the streetscape will be majorly impacted by what we are proposing.
Sorry. Adam, you had a question. You were asking the neighbors if they had any comments or questions.
That's correct. I just wonder if they can chime in on.
I don't know if Derek or Niall. I'm going to say Shelley Q because I can't remember the person who actually.
Hi, it's Shelley. If I can just
Shelley.
Interject there. Thank you, Mr. Mottershead, for bringing that up. I think that is a valid concern. There are some homes in the neighborhood that are being developed. However, those are several houses down. So currently, and that was actually one of my concerns when I first saw the drawing, was because of the extension forward as well as backward, the homes are not going to be in line anymore, if that makes sense. So both the front and the rear of the homes of this new addition is going to, be elongated on both sides.
So Shelley,
When you compare it to the current homes that are there, several houses down and also across the street. So it is changing definitely the character of the neighborhood. That was your initial statement. And yes, that is in fact the case.
Hold on, Anil. We're going to have Anish. We're going to have other people speak first, and then we'll allow you to speak after. Derek.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My parents also voiced similar concerns that the house would not fit in with the community and or make the neighbors' houses look as aesthetically pleasing, only because it will be significantly bigger. We are obviously all aware of the construction on the street and that some very large homes have gone in, which they don't think add to the community. And the only reason I didn't mention it earlier was because one of the communications I did get from the town did speak to that specifically, saying, look, you have to voice your concerns on other things other than just the aesthetics of the proposed building. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there anybody else, any other neighbors that wanted to comment? I think we've covered them all. Anish, did you want to address that, or Igor, perhaps? Sorry, you're on mute, Anish. Anish, you were just on mute, so we couldn't hear your last comment or response. There we go.
Hello, can you hear me now? Yeah, so our neighbor, like on both, like on one side, like who is Derek, like representing, he has a garage and a sunroom on his side, right? So I don't see an issue. Why are they objecting to this when you can build it? Like, I'm only having like I have a growing family with a teenage son. Like ours is like a crawl space in the basement too, and there is not much of a basement, and that's why we want this space.
Thank you. Igor, did you wish to respond at all to the character of the streetscape and so on? It's obviously a neighborhood in transition. If I drive up there, I agree, they're older homes, but when you're transitioning, you're not going to get a uniform change like a new subdivision. Things happen property by property, and I drive around the neighborhood, I see pretty big monster homes, not only on the lake, I see them across the lake, down the side streets, so there's a lot of infill and redeveloping happening here. So I would agree there's some concerns. It's always the immediate neighbors that are affected, but on the other hand, you know, that's what happens in a neighborhood that's transitioning. They're not going to happen uniformly or all at once. So maybe you can speak to some of that. Or
Thank you,
Walter
Chairman.
can.
That is a great point. So in essence, I believe Anisha is prepared to invest a great deal of money into making the home modernized, newer, refreshed. I'm not sure that it's contra to what Grimsby's trying to achieve. And as Anish pointed out, compared to some of the projects undertaken by developers, I would say this is quite reasonable. And last point, Anish's plan is to proceed with an expansion required for his family. We're only discussing, can it be to something more functional, or will it be limited to the existing setbacks?
Thank you.
If I may add to that.
I was just going to ask Walter to chime in
Yeah.
at the end. You wrote one of the bigger reports on this one, so it's obviously a planning and interpreting. A little longer than that other first application we dealt with, I might add. But
yeah, I can't take credit for the writing, but I can take credit for the reading and the signing on the one side. But other than that, I just want to make it clear to everybody that we're not. This application isn't a consideration of the size of the house or the height of the house or the depth of the house. The application is to determine whether or not the side yards that are being proposed are appropriate and whether or not the front yard that's being proposed is appropriate. If the applicant met the side yard and front yard requirements, the size of the house would barely change. Like the size or the area and the height and the bulk of the house would be negligibly smaller. You probably wouldn't even notice it. Unfortunately, the size of the garage wouldn't meet the requirements of a parking space, so it would be too small. So it makes sense that the size of the garage on the side needs to be a certain size at minimum in order to be able to pull a car in and open the doors. If it gets any smaller, that may not be possible. So it wouldn't be a usable garage and it would create a problem with parking on the site. Now, so I just wanted to make that sort of clear that we're dealing with side yards and front yard. We're not dealing with the size of the building at all. Size of the building otherwise would meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw other than for the side yards and the front yard. That's really all I have to say.
okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee before we call a vote on this matter? I think we've heard lots of comment and feedback from both sides. The application has two conditions as suggested by staff, and one's regarding the archaeological assessment and from the region, and the second is regarding a permit from the NPCA prior to any commencement of work. And I believe third, Herb had a recommendation that a surveyor be involved during the construction, I guess, to ensure that any construction of the foundation meet the variance if it's approved. Correct, Herb? If we can word it in such a way. So do I have a mover and a seconder on this application, adding the third recommendation as suggested by Herb? Or not? Danielle? Seconder? Oh, sorry, Dylan? Any further discussion? So I'll just read it then before we vote. Resolve submission A0121 to permit a front yard setback of 6 meters, whereas 6.68 is required. An interior side yard setback on the east side of 1.2, whereas 1.8 is required. And an interior side yard setback of 1.2 on the west side, where 1.8 is required, be approved, subject to the following conditions: that an archaeological assessment scope to the limit of the subject lands be done to construct to the MHSTCI and receive an acknowledgement letter from the same, copy to the region confirming that all archaeological resource concerns have been met, licensing and resource conservation requirements, no demolition, grading, or soil disturbances shall take place prior to the issuance of the letter. And number 2, that a permit be obtained from the NPCA prior to any commencement of the work. And 3, that Ontario Land Surveyor ensure that the construction of the foundation be in accordance with the variance approved herein. Any further discussion on this matter? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, if any? Was carried. So it was approved, subject to those conditions, and there is a 20-day appeal period. If one of the neighbors so wishes to appeal it, you have to do so within 20 days of the decision. Thank you very much for coming out this evening, and I believe that's it for the agenda. Thanks very much, everybody.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like
Yes.
to bring something up. It just dawned on me halfway through the last application for 11 Lakeview. We had a motion for approval, and then that motion got defeated, but we didn't have a new motion for denial. So technically, I think at this point, the application's in limbo. I don't think we actually made a formal decision on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sorry,
I'm
I was thinking the same thing.
Herb had his hand up first.
Yes, I think by denying the application, that's what we have basically done. That the application, there was a mover and a seconder on that, and then it came through and it was turned down. So it's a denial.
No, that just means that that motion was defeated. The applicant could request a deferral or a tabling to be heard at another agenda or to revise their application, or another motion has to be brought forward to deny. Just because a defeated motion happens does not mean that the application automatically gets denied.
Well, that's the first for me, but
Yeah,
I'm going to let Nancy speak first. Hold on. Nancy.
Yeah, in the past, if a motion has been defeated, that means it's been denied. And that's what we've.
I mean, it's kind of redundant to vote on the same thing with the same, unless people are going to change their mind between one motion and another, which is basically the same thing, just in reverse, if that's what you feel. I mean, I'm kind of disappointed. It actually got turned down. No neighbors showed up. She wants to put an addition on, and these people get approved, and there's 3 neighbors in opposition. I don't get this logic here, but that's the committee's discretion here. But Nancy, maybe you can clarify this.
So the
Application was defeated because you voted to defeat it. If you wanted to change that application, you had an opportunity to bring forward that it be deferred or that changes to the application. So when he says that, is there any discussion on the motion? That would have been your opportunity to bring that forward. I'd also like to concur with Kevin. When you defeat a motion like that, you should give reasons for the record. In the event of an appeal, that's very important, that there be reasons on the record why it's being defeated.
Okay, then, so if a motion's defeated in the future, then I guess we'd have to bring it back to the committee members for reasoning as to why.
Or I guess perhaps if you're intending to vote negative after it's on the floor for a vote and before we call the vote, perhaps make your comments known then. You know, I intend to vote against the motion because blah, 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 blah. I think that helps. I guess lay out the reasons that you're about to vote no, so that the opening is during that period of, are there any further discussions on the motion? It's on the table, it's open to a vote, but before we call the vote, you can put your quote unquote 2 cents in. I know we all kind of comment inadvertently through the discussions that happen and the question and answers and so on, but during that period of, are there any further discussions? I guess that's when you're able to voice your objections or support why you're going to vote one way, or even support it. You might say, I'm in support of this or in favor of this motion because of the following.
If I may weigh in, it's also important to illustrate if the application doesn't meet all of the tests required under the Planning Act, you need to identify which test it doesn't satisfy if you're voting against it. And I think I'm going to back up Danielle's comment. I think it's important to have a defeated motion and to specifically identify which test it doesn't satisfy.
So would it be your preference then to call that back? Is there any reason why we can't call that application back and vote for a defeat with members giving their reasons why? I mean,
I think it's
important. On the agenda.
Yeah, I think it's important to do a little bit of research just to make sure that we're on the proper footing here in terms of bringing it back, or if the decision was properly rendered. But I think in the future, if there is going to be a motion to defeat, it needs to identify which test, if any, the application doesn't meet.
Right, because the flavor I got, just to speak in the earlier application this evening, the flavor I got was, well, it doesn't look like the application, the drawing was what was applied for, but when in reality, it was a side yard setback, regardless of 1-2-story garage, bedroom, whatever they're going to put in there, it was a side yard setback that was being built on a foundation. It wasn't a garage anymore, but it was for an addition, I agree, but the effect and I guess the effect itself has no difference to the neighbors, especially if there's no neighbors.
Yeah, the request was to maintain the existing side yard.
Correct, right. So I guess that's some of my concerns, and then I agree, then speak your mind on to why you're against it. We didn't have any neighbors against, so give us the reason why you're against. So maybe we should call for another vote on this to defeat the application and then clarify the reasons for voting, if you wish to maintain that same vote. The reasons, what tests you think are failed or fail in this case. Would that be fair? Or?
I don't know if it's a good idea to do it now that everybody's gone.
Okay.
If you're going to do that, it's you should be doing it at the next meeting.
Okay, that's fair. Adam, did you wish to ask a question or comment?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to say that in the Planning Act, it says that no decision of the committee on an application is valid unless it is concurred by the majority of the members of the committee that heard the application. So in my mind, there should have been a subsequent motion to deny.
Yeah, I can't speak from if we've ever done that in the past. It's usually voted once but.
May I ask, how does council do it if a motion comes forward and a motion's defeated? Is another motion not brought forward to make a different decision?
No. Jessica?
No, there is.
Oh.
So I will look into this, but my experience is that once it's
defeated, it's defeated, and there is no forthcoming motion after that fact. Generally speaking, when the chair asks, is there any discussion on the motion? That would have been your opportunity to say, I believe this application should be deferred. And then that would raise the question, if it's defeated, do I have a motion to defer?
Okay, understood. Thank you, Nancy, for clarifying.
What's your experience been in Burlington?
Yeah, may I suggest that we do a little bit more research and bring it back for discussion at the next meeting.
Yep.
And if that application is going to be put forth for another vote, that the applicants at minimum be notified to participate.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, Kevin, I think you asked me what my
sorry, I was starting to say, what's your experience in Burlington being on the Committee of Adjustment?
So with my role in Burlington, I don't present before the Committee of Adjustment. However, I have attended, and it was the same in Hamilton as well too, that if a motion is put forward and that motion is defeated, a new motion had to be brought forward to deny or to table or to defer. It wasn't an automatic, if a motion was defeated, it wasn't an automatic opposite decision brought forward. So a new motion had to be brought forward, because then that way when it's appealed, or if it gets appealed, then there's a clear direction on where the city's or the Committee of Adjustment stance was in relation to where the staff stance was. And then that way, if staff needs to be subpoenaed or if other planning representatives need to be brought in, there was an understanding of what role everybody was taking from the city, the committee, and the residents. So
right, and it's important to recognize, that there were other options other than just defeating.
That is correct.
There was an option to table.
Yes.
Table the application or defer it.
correct me if I'm wrong though, is it not a hearing de novo though at a LPAT, or is that changed for Committee of Adjustment? They hear it, they don't look at it as what did the committee decide and we're going to review that decision and make our own. They hear it clean as a clean slate?
That's correct.
Okay. So the onus would be on who to make the motion for a defeat. In this case, if it was turned down to approve, or the motion to approve was denied, then who's obligated to bring forward another motion to table or make a motion to defeat the application?
So in my experience, it would be the chairperson to say, do I have another motion, or does somebody would like to put another motion forward? And then assumingly, somebody who did not vote in favor of the first motion would put a motion forward for denial. And then assumingly somebody else who did not vote in favor of it the first time would second it. And then the vote would have the majority in the opposite of the first vote, would be then in a denial vote. Does that make sense?
Is that your understanding, Walter? Because that's new. That we've never done it that way with John. Not to say it wasn't right back then, but Dylan's going to weigh in on this.
I'm not the absolute authority in this. I would suggest that we do the research that we need to do.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring it back to the
because it is different than council and other committees, right? It is a different body. But I'm going to ask Dylan one to make a comment. He had his hand up.
No, my only comment would be that yes, as we do our research and bring this back, I guess as a committee member as well, I'd like to know sort of more about the options to defer and table and everything else, and sort of maybe do some scenario planning with that too. Is if we need a second motion to deny, and the vote isn't a mirror image of what just happened, what happens then? So you've defeated a motion, and then you could potentially have a motion that fails to deny. So,
right. So then what?
So I think there's that, but also the fact too of, I guess for me as a somewhat new committee member, about, sort of more on sort of what the options are then, and why we as a committee member would want them, tabling, deferring, denying, etc. So I'm just not 100% clear on sort of what some of the options I guess the committee member are.
I believe in the training sessions that were provided by Kathy at the beginning of this term. I know that I had to complete through OCA. I believe there was one on the Planning Act legislation. And I don't know if we can go back and get I guess an opinion from OCA as well too. I don't know if that's an option.
Yeah. Herb, you had your hand up.
Yes, yeah. One thing, OCA is not a governing body. It's just opinions from people that are on there. So it's not, they don't make decisions on applications. They can just go, same with anyone else, is just their experience with it.
But we can get an understanding of everybody else's best practices and how they do things, though.
Well, typically the larger municipalities have legal input, in-house legal counsel, or their in-house lawyers are giving them advice. I'm sure we're not the first to run across this, but this would have been the first time we ran across the situation where we were asked to actually vote on the same thing in reverse. But hey, we'll find out in the next couple of weeks or months if we do some research on it. So I'm open to that.
That's the other thing I'd like to say is if we do some research on this, we should have a meeting prior to the next meeting, a Zoom meeting with everyone, so that everyone is on board for that.
Yeah, it's better to do it now or in advance with just us than in a public open forum.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. And they're perfectly appropriate as long as it's a training session.
That's right. It's just an information gathering and add legal assistance or whatever it needs to be in discussion among ourselves, what our procedures, our policies and procedures are going to be. It wouldn't involve anyone else. It's not looking at an application or anything like this here.
So just Nancy has a question or comment. We are still live streaming this. This meeting is still going on, by the way.
Yes. So certainly we can do some research, and also we do have an upcoming procedural bylaw, and that's something that could certainly be incorporated into that bylaw. But we'll get back to you.
Thank you, Nancy. I
All right.
appreciate it.
So motion to adjourn then?
Sorry, everybody. I apologize. I
No,
motioned.
no, it's good because we have some new members too. So it's good. We just, we get into this routine of doing things one way, and it's good to challenge it and look at it and review it and see if it's the right way. So I'll call for a motion to adjourn so we can close the formal meeting. But I agree that if we do some of this training, it should just be a separate Zoom session with us outside of a formal public meeting.
I agree. That's appropriate. Yes. Like as Walter has stated. Yeah. So I'll motion to adjourn the meeting since
Seconder.
I started the lengthy of it.
Any further discussion? Now's your chance if you want to. All right. All those in favor say aye. Good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.